So just a reminder to everyone as we're getting in, like these are optional, you're not required to attend them. If you find value in them, please keep using them. And if you'd rather, like I'm a kind of person that just likes to dive in, that works too. So don't feel like these are required. They're there to support you. And we'll start saying that in emails going forward too.
All right, we are gonna get started today. Thank you for joining us. So far, things that you should have completed are chapter profile, your total program enrollment up to now. Make sure your teacher profiles and individual teacher logins are working. If you know your courses for this, you can go ahead and add those and set up your teacher logins. And then last week, we explored some of the strategic planning tools in AET. As a reminder, all of these trainings are optional and you do have the opportunity to earn CEUs by completing these trainings and the quizzes that follow them. But we do encourage you to take a look at what's out there, and we are recording this. Today we are going to look at how to add student leaders to our accounts to help us with our strategic planning and program of activities development. So in order to be successful today, make sure that your teacher login to AET is working, and you can find the help sheet this week on our website under teacher resources. And tomorrow you'll be able to take CEUs credit.
Further clarify, like these ones are now optional topics too. So the first 3 trainings that we did through the levy are things that all schools have to do for entering your profile data. And we'll do another one here in about a month on getting students started, but the program activities planner is a resource for you, but not something we're requiring.
All right, so if you are looking for our help for today, you can go ahead and go to the FFA website, go under resources to teacher resource. And the first link is our AET training resources. And today we're going to be focusing on POA and strategic planning and assigning student officers. So you can bring up that help sheet. So last week we covered goals and plans, mission, and really looking at the overall big picture. And now we're going to dive into the tools that AET has to help us manage those specific programs. So the first thing we can do is we can assign student access to all of these different components so that they have access to the things that we're doing. So to use a sample chapter, we are going to go up to the FFA associations, and you can find all of these tools under the tracker tab. So if you click the tracker tab, you are then able to go, it's called C2, Manage Student Access to the Program Calendar and Meeting Manager. And then there's a drop down of all of your students. So you can see a variety of people. And so let's say I wanted to add Joe Ramstead, Zane Sheehan, and Tiffany Tim, because they are new officers this year that weren't officers last year. Now, when these students log in, they will be able to access the meeting manager component of that. Again, that's under tracker, under C2, manage student access, and then there's just a drop down. In the future, we're going to look at what meeting manager access looks like, but this is the same place where you can find these components. Any questions so far? All right, now we're going to switch over to what this looks like from a student's perspective if you've given them access. So we're going to use, for example, the Staples Motley FFA chapter because Mr. Ramstead gave us permission to do so. And so if I go under his tracker, I can see the students that he has given access to. And for this example, we're going to go into one of those students' accounts. So if I am Alexis, I am going to log in and this is what I'm going to see. Right away when she logs in, she's going to be able to see on her homepage that she now has access to the POA tools. So it's really easy for student leaders to be able to find that page once you give them access to it. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And then once your officers have completed, this is what we looked at last week, was the strategic planning pieces. So once Mr. Ramstead has his officer retreat, he'll be able to fill in the mission statement, vision, SWOT, any of those components that he does at his officer retreat. But today we're going to be looking specifically at the activities tab. So because I know Staples Motley, for example, has completed their National Chapter Award, you can see the different strategic plans that they've had over the years and switch back and forth. So for this demonstration, we're actually going to use last year's so that you're able to see what a completed one looks like. So I'm going to select the March 19 to March 2020 strategic plan. What can I clarify so far? All right, so under the strategic plan, we can see that the Staples Motley officer team has already set some dates. They've added these to their calendars and they have assigned some of these activities. So let's go back and look and see how they did that. So as under the journal, no, hold on. I need to go back to the teacher one. So under your teacher login, if you go to tracker, you can find the calendar, which is your program of activities. And so if you click that, you can see the different months. So anytime that you want to add a new event to your calendar, you can just click to the date that you want. So for example, let's look at today's date and we can put in an AET training. You can set your location so that if parents, for example, are wondering where a CDE or LDE is, or if there's a service opportunity, you can go ahead and add where some of those are. You can add how many days the event is, what time it is. And then these are the parts that are easy to forget, is the committee delegation. So let's say AET training is under career success. And then if it's an event we've done before, you can actually copy the details from a previous event. But in this case, we are not going to copy those. And then you can click save and it'll add it to your calendar.
One thing I like to do too is we didn't use all 15 committees in my program. We just used 6 of them. So 4 of the bigger ones, and then we had like a student committee and a community service committee. And so each of those committees had their own colors too. And so within the events, you can actually set a color to them. So maybe all of your community service events are red. And if that's something that your chapter likes to do, there's some neat ways to customize your calendar.
Okay, am I unmuted? I am unmuted.
Nope, you're good.
Crazy question. I'm looking at mine. Did one of you guys go in and put all our region calendar stuff in?
I am in the process of doing that.
I was like, oh my God, this is all in, and this is like all updated for my regional and I'm in one in charge of regional calendar.
You're welcome. I'm working on it.
Wow.
That's our hope,
like,
is all the state events would be done for you. And then as in Ms. Rob's new role as the regional supervisor, she should, again, we're trying to take stuff off your plate, right? So if all you have to do is put in your local level events, all your region and state stuff is done for you. We think this
high five through the thing. This is awesome.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
Yes, the goal is to be able to put all of those in so that you guys don't have to do it individually, because there's no reason for 200 of you to all do the same thing when I can do it once.
Amen.
tell your friends so that they like this tool. Talk about it.
So from the teacher perspective, that's how you add something to your calendar of events. And like we said hopefully we can add all of the region and state ones for you. So all you have to do is add your chapter events. Then if I go back to being Lexi from my student view, I'm able to see our chapter calendar. And we're going to go back down to the POA and look at activities. So these should show all of the activities that we have planned for the year that we have set aside. And you can see that they've already been signed whatever category from the program of activities that is aligned with it.
Lavin, you could click new activity too, right? And set it from there.
Yep.
So I think
absolutely.
if you want to do it by month, or you could just go down a list and do it.
Yep. So again, up in the right corner, it does say new activity in red. So you can also click it from there. And then since I've given this student access to the calendar, they're able to add things as well. So they can go ahead and do this too. Once they're in our calendar, then they will show up here. So let's look at CDE Fair. So this is a completed one, but if we go through each of them, you can help the students figure out exactly what their plan is for it using these 7 tabs on the bottom. So first, under the general tab, you're going to set the basic description. So what is your location? Is it an FFA activity? Is it a competition or a meeting? Is it an SAE visit, community service? You know, what kind of activity does that fall under? Your start and end time, and then what committee it goes to. One really cool feature that they have is that you can allow students to upload photos. And so instead of you as the teacher having to run around and try to have all of those photos emailed to you, the students can upload the photos right into that specific event if you give them access to it, and then it'll pop up on their profile that they're able to do it. So that's a cool feature that they've added. And then you can go ahead and assign what students are actually responsible and being on that committee under the general tab. If you have any other details, maybe a planning agenda or notes as you're planning on things, that's another place that you can add them under details. Under the next tab is our goals, plans, and outcomes. And this is following the profile for the National Chapter Award application, which automatically imports from the POA into the National Chapter Award. So it's kind of another time saver if you're interested in doing that award application. So the activity description is just a brief description so that anyone who read this would be able to understand what's happening. Again, like other things we've done, there's always the little question mark here that tells you exactly what should go in that box. And then because this is part of an award application, we haven't seen this before, but there's a little ribbon there and it tells you specifically what the rubric says as to how to get the most points on that feature. So in order for the activity description, if you're doing it for National Chapter, they want to know the purpose of the activity and why it's taking place. Next, we have 3 separate goals, plans of actions, and then our outcomes. So our goals, again, we want them to be SMART goals. So you want them to be specific, and that means probably have a number in it. I like to tell students you want it to be check-offable so that you know, yes, I accomplished it, or no, I didn't, because you've made it specific. And you want to have some kind of date stamp assigned to it. So those are usually the 2 pieces that students forget. Then in the plan of action, this is our who, what, where, how. So who's going to do the work? Where is it going to happen? Again, could someone take a copy of this and be able to duplicate it on their own with the plan of action that is provided there? So those are the 2 components you would be able to do is the planning parts of it. And then after your event, for example, we did monthly during our officer meetings, we would go back after the event and fill out the outcome and whether it was met, exceeded, or unmet. and then we'd be able to explain why. Again, if you're working on the national chapter perspective of it, your goals do not have to be met. You just need to show why they were met or what you learned from that experience if they are unmet. So don't worry if they're not. And then you'll be able to put in 3 separate goals. One thing that I would encourage you to do, because I know my students really struggled with this, is think about the financial part of it and make that one of your goals. So as much as we all love fundraising, I don't think any of us fundraise just for the sake of fundraising. And so instead of setting a goal for fruit sales, can you set a goal that 20% of your fruit sales is going to be used to pay for a specific event? And I think that helps students really think through how a budget actually works, and that we don't just fundraise for the fun of fundraising and then spend money for the fun of spending money, but those two things are connected. So that is one thing that I found helps students understand the reason that we're fundraising by connecting it specifically with a goal. Can I clarify on that page? All right, dates and deadlines. My computer's freezing. All right, if you are a person who really likes having checklists, this is a page that really helps you out. So you're able to add a checklist with some deadlines to help your students think through, when do you need to order things? When do you need permission slips by? When do you need to send out notices to teachers or administrators or parents? So this is a place where you can put some of those checklist items in to help you go back and really have a good plan for an event.
I always told my students to be as detailed as you can be. The example I always give is like our teacher appreciation breakfast. I would tell them to write down how much to buy of everything. So they would say, 6 loaves of bread, or 18 things of bacon. And I always had the teams reflect back to, like, if this is my officer team, how good of a job did last year's officer team do to help you get ready for November CDE fair? Looking at their description, they didn't do a good job at all, right? Like, they didn't put nothing in there to help you. So your job as an officer team is to set up next year's team better than they set up you. And this really helped me as an advisor, because then I got to advise them instead of like being their leader. I wasn't the chapter president anymore. The results and evaluation tab is also really useful for that, because they can leave notes and feedback to the next team. So these first 3 things here, Lavin will talk about for National Chapter Award, but at the bottom is accomplishments and recommendations. So what were some things that went really well? Like maybe for the teacher breakfast this year, we prepared some of the French toast the night before, and then we just had to cook it in the morning. We didn't have to do all the battering. Or recommendations, like the one year my officer team thought they were being smart, and they cooked the bacon in this like storage closet, not realizing like it's going to smoke out. And so they like made recommendations of, hey, don't do that. You need to cook the bacon outside. So this could be positives and maybe negatives, or accomplishments, recommendations, whatever you want. But to me, the timeline in these 2 steps were super important as being a chapter advisor, because it made my life so much easier. Like, I didn't have to I don't know how many freaking things of bacon to buy. Like, I don't remember. Go look at AET, and that worked really well.
Agreed. So under the results and evaluations tab, in addition to those notes, again, if you're doing it for the National Chapter Award, so advancing leaders, if you look at the vision statement, this specific category falls under growing leaders. And so it's asking what specifically about this event is advancing the leadership skills of our students. And so you're able to really reflect on, did this activity advance the leadership skills of our students? The impact, this is where you really want to get your numbers. So how many people attended, how many people were impacted, how many dollars were raised. This is another place where it's really good to remember some of that data that you're collecting, so that you can help your students think through like how to grow that event each year. And then this quality standard, so this one was growing leaders is the quality standard. So how specifically does this event grow leaders or lead to career success or whatever quality standard you've selected? What can we clarify in that page?
This probably feels like a lot of work. What I would probably recommend is at your summer retreat, you're going to put together your calendar, and you might put together like the general description and how many hours it's worth for maybe your lettering system. And then I usually had them do the timeline and then the accomplishments and results piece that we would reflect at the end. Normally what we did at winter then is we would go through and select what are the 15 events we really want to focus on for National Chapter Board. And we did these pieces with the blue ribbons just for those 15 events. And so you might change over time, like, I think our community day of service is a better event than Adopt a Highway. So let's do that this year. But we don't want you to think that you don't have to do any of this. You could just have a general calendar for your POA. Chances are you're gonna have, like when we did POA, we always set some goals. We did our kind of timelines. I would really only do these blue ribbon items for things that you think you're submitting for an award. But if you want to do it for all of them, go for it.
Yep.
So by the rules of FFA, you have to have a POA of some kind, and we say a POA is a calendar. So if you don't choose to use AET, you can keep doing a Word document for now. We haven't said, the FFA board might look at it in the future and say we want all POAs in the calendar. But I would recommend doing it because, like you said a second ago, all the state and region events are in there for you already. So the rules are you have to have a POA of some kind.
Mm-hmm. The next tab is the photos and files. I think this is a value place where you can keep some of those different pieces. And I like that they've added the files. It used to just be photos, but now with the files, you can add old, flyers that you had or sign-up sheets or those kinds of things. Excuse me. So I think this is an opportunity for, again, you have a chapter reporter that wrote a great newspaper article, upload the file so that next year's reporter only has to change some dates and some quotes, and then you have that press release already done, or you have that flyer already done and you just need to change the date. So it's another place that instead of having students have to dig through your files on your computer, you can have them have automatic access to this and support the future teams as well by uploading all of your files into this one place so it's connected to that specific event.
If you have a Google Drive or something, that's okay to use too. But what we want is, like, my program used QuickBooks for all of our finances here. That's great. But if you don't have resources like that or don't want to, this gives you at least that minimum tool to do your finances, so that the finances tab works here under budget, and then the files tab can be your Google Drive. If you don't have something in your school, you at least have this place to store your files.
So the budget is, again, it's a typical budget. Where do you expect that your income is going to come in from? So again, is it 20% of your fruit sales is going to pay for this pancake breakfast? Or are you going to raise through donations? And then what are those expenses? So this is another place I'd encourage them to be very specific. So did they buy 3 dozen eggs and then have to run to the grocery store halfway through the pancake feed because they needed 3 dozen more? Try to be as specific as you can about what those actual expenses are, because it's going to help you and your students in the future as you plan. And then participants is the last one. We're going to cover what this looks like next time, but the nice thing about this is students are able to just click that they attended or scan in that they attended, and then you as the advisor will be able to see a list of all of the students that say that they attended. But we're going to cover this a little bit more next week. What can we clarify about any of those tabs or resources? All right. Well, that's what we have for this week. Like I said, next week we're going to cover exactly how to get your participants into the different systems if they are coming to a chapter meeting and some of those things. But I'd encourage you, like I said, I'm working on getting all of the region calendars into AET so that you don't have to do that. The state calendar of events is in there for what we know so far. And so you can just focus on adding your chapter events. And next week we'll show you how to help students get registered for those.
So remember, these are very few things are mandatory in this system. We are requiring you use it for your program information, and we're going to use it for FFA membership so we can submit it to FFA and you don't have to use their system. All these tools we're showing now are optional. You might say, love this, I want to dive into the POA. That makes my life easier. You might say, nope, I like how I do it now. I'll look at this maybe in a different year. And so these little 10, 15-minute workshops we're doing right now are just to give you an idea of what they are. And if there's huge demand for more calendar training, POA training, we'll offer those at future iTeacher workshops. So please don't feel like you need to do all of this at once. There were certain things I did and certain things I said, nope, not touching that. And that's okay. And so the only things really required are membership, because we're just not going to use FFA.org. This is easier for it. And then your profile within it as a teacher, because then we don't have to do a state survey. So this feels like a lot. Please know almost all of it is optional and what you feel works best.
Our goal is to make your life easier. So like Lisa said, you don't need to use sticky notes anymore, and you can leave notes to yourself for the future. So we hope that these tools are useful. And if you think of anything else or notice that there's other tools on here that we don't have trainings on, just let us know. Thanks, everyone.